Mexico just wrapped up their, I guess we'll call this like a micro ciclo match one. They squeezed in two friendlies in preparation for the World Cup. And today they face Panama in Panama. And honestly, I was really looking forward to these matches because of the players that Aguirre decided to call. It was like Chivas plus, I don't know, a couple of other players around the league. But like I said, there's a lot of positives to take away from this match. Panama didn't give us much to work with, right? So you gotta, it takes two to tango, and Panama didn't want to tango. We had to take the game from them, and I think there were some positives from tonight's match. I'll see if Rifalo is ready to speak. If not, take your time. We are all here to get everyone's reaction live. But really, one thing I want to emphasize on, there was a lot of, I guess, controversy or, a lot of discussions around the players that Aguirre decided to take. A lot of them are Mexican Americans, right? And a lot of them have to do a one-time switch to play for Mexico, right? So you're looking at Brian Gutierrez, who recently was signed by Chivas. And then also Richie Ledesma, a player that Rifalo has been praising for quite some time. He was actually able to play today. So was Brian Gutierrez. I'm very happy that these guys were able to get some minutes. And I see it as a positive because not only are you supplementing your team, granted, I don't know if these guys will actually make the cut, will actually make it to the World Cup. However, you're taking pieces away from the U.S. men's national team. So I think there's got to be some positivity there. It's like, it's a win-win situation for Mexico. Whether Brian Gonzalez or Ledesma or some of these other pochos end up going to the World Cup, that's another story, but at least you're taking them away from the U.S. men's national team. To me, I see that as a success. Another thing from today's match is I think Raul Tala Rangel has solidified his position as the number one goalkeeper for the Mexican national team. I've got my fingers crossed. I think that for what he did today, for what Aguirre decided to do and give him the starting job, it kind of solidifies his spot as the number one goalkeeper. Didn't really get tested too much. However, there was a scary moment in the first half where he was kind of caught off guard and Panama just took a really long shot and it looked lethal, but it didn't go anywhere near the goal, but it did catch everybody off guard. But Raul Rangel just looks very comfortable on his feet. And I can't say the same for Angel Malegon, who, is not in the best of form, in my opinion, for America. And Acevedo, I don't know why we're teasing him. I don't know if Aguirre legitimately considers him as the third option. I still think my gut tells me that it's going to be Guille Memo Ochoa. I think he's going to be our third spot keeper. He might kind of just be like a player's coach. He probably won't get any minutes in the World Cup, but I think it would be much, much better for Mexico to bring him on as a third goalkeeper instead of Acevedo. That's just me. A lot of Chivas players in today's lineup, and, we cannot ignore the great form that Chivas are in. Granted, it's only been 3 games, but we are super leaders in Mexico, and you could see the influence that Aguirre had in calling up a lot of players from Chivas. I think there was 8 in total. So, just acknowledging Chivas' great form. David Vasquez on YouTube saying, nah, Memo's starting. Maybe in the commercials, David. I think in the commercials, he's still got that Centenario tequila on lock. But I do believe that he's not going to be starting in the World Cup. Bring back Oscar Perez for that game against South Africa. I think that would be hilarious. Again, guys, don't be shy. Feel free to request to speak. I'm going to continue rambling here with today's match against Panama. One thing I didn't really like was the fact that, with all the Chivas players starting today, for some fucking reason, Aguirre decided to go with Berterame as the starting striker, which was incredibly frustrating because obviously, you have the formula for success right now. In Liga MX, Chivas are playing really well. Hormiga's on top of his game. He's in form. And I would have really liked to see him get the start today instead of Berterame. Maybe Aguirre felt like he needed some leadership and some seniority on the pitch. He was actually given the captain's armband, which was surprising. And it's very interesting with Berterame because right now there's some rumors circling around that he is going to join Messi and friends over there in Inter Miami. So just a interesting moment for his career. And we have, I feel a certain type of way about players on the Mexican national team going to the MLS. You see how Chucky Lozano is struggling. They publicly denounced him and said, we're not going to, Chucky's no longer part of our plans. And Chucky's, sort of occupying and saying, you guys are going to have to pay me out, bro. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not moving. So it's an interesting situation over there in San Diego. But welcome, guys. Who wants to go first? Rifado, welcome to the show.
Hey, good evening, everyone. And, I 100% agree. It's like a double-edged sword having, the Chivas players. It's like, it's good, but also like the reliance will most certainly hinder the Chivas season. And we're on the top of the table right now. But even though a lot of Chivas players got to get some minutes today with bar Ormigol, who was like a late sub, they didn't look all that great. Richard Ledesma being the exception, Tala Rangel, another exception, but we already knew Tala was pretty good.
Yeah,
he impressed me in the air. You spoke about that moment late on, where he like nicked the ball toward the corner. Like that was a dangerous moment. That would have been a goal. And I don't think Malagon would have gotten to that because he is significantly shorter than Rafa, not crazy amount, but significantly shorter and less reach than Tala Rangel. So we didn't look all that great, but it's a bunch of young guys, and they have hardly played together, bar the Chivas players. A lot of these dudes, like Kevin Castaneda, I've never seen him for the Selección. I'm not 100% sure that that this was his debut, but I'm like 80% sure that it was. He's a Xolos player, 25 years old, the number 10 at Xolos. He was interesting, and but a lot of these guys, they haven't had a lot of time at the highest level for the national team. Another one was Aguila, San Luis's center back.
Yeah.
He had some minutes. He had a header on target, I believe. But like the connectivity, like the synergy of the team chemistry, it wasn't there. Whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't impressed. It was kind of boring for large lapses. And in part, it's because of what you said. Panama was bunkering down, even at home, like in a sea of red shirts. They were playing some cowardly football.
They got nothing to lose. They're not going to the World Cup. Like, at least try to make it entertaining.
Yeah. So it was a snooze fest, man. And it's just another molero, dare I say?
Yeah, definitely a molero, and just like an awkward break for the national team. Liga MX just got kicked off, and then kind of have to pause for these two matches. We're going to play Bolivia on Sunday in Bolivia, which is awesome. But I think Aguirre is holding his cards very close to the chest. If you are South Africa, if you are Korea, you're trying to spy, you're trying to do intel on your opponents, and I think Aguirre really hasn't figured out, number one, what his final product is going to look like, the starting lineup, and also like the formation. Like, what was today's formation? I saw it was like a line of three in the back with Ledesma and Brian Gonzalez kind of being like the wingers. So it was kind of like a 5-3. I don't know what it was. It was like a weird formation. It kept morphing throughout the game. And, Aguirre is still sticking to that solo striker, and we are struggling to generate any type of, offense. And it was quite evident today. And one of the things that really concerned me on the broadcast in Univision was saying, oh, well, Gil Mora is going to be the guy that gets the engine going. I'm like, bro, we're counting on a 17-year-old to generate like goals for us. Like, that is alarming and concerning. And Kikin, who, sometimes I bump heads with, he actually, said, hey, man, it's not, you can't rely on one player to change this thing. It's a system thing. It's a system thing that's not working out for the national team. And I don't know if, like, again, Aguirre's just playing 4D chess and just trying to, you know, just like our game, our opening match against South Africa. I have a feeling it's going to be a completely different formation and a completely different lineup.
This setup reminded me of the Chivas setup. Five in the back, one striker, one half striker, kind of with a liberty of drift in and out. And both Brian Gutierrez and Piojo filled that role. With Brian going a little deeper in midfield at times. So I basically think that Aguirre was practicing the Melito setup on the national team. And what supports this theory of mine is that the backbone was largely Chivas, especially in defense, with Romo as the libero, just like for Milito. I don't think there was much success, but it's a hard system to crack, honestly.
Yeah. I don't know what we can take away from these matches because we're not really going to play opponents like Panama or Bolivia in the World Cup. We still have to find out who the final team in the playoffs, the European playoffs. But it's going to be a team from Ireland or Denmark or, one of those teams. And I think that's why we have a match scheduled against Iceland next month and Belgium. Those are really solid friendlies. But these two, the Panama and the Bolivia, I mean, they don't play like South Africa. But maybe Aguirre's just anticipating, hey, they're probably going to try and play bunker ball and, physically outplay us. But maybe this is just what was available in January for scheduling some friendlies. I see Ron is on. Ron, I don't know if you have anything to add. I don't know if you caught the game tonight. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm not really convinced. With the team, I'm still very doubtful.
Yeah.
I wouldn't look too much. In terms of Chivas, having eight players and stuff like that. That could come back and burn Chivas because it's happened before. Because for example, like Aguirre, when he first took the team back in what is it, 01, whatever. I mean, he basically just used whichever team was gelling, and at the time he was using Pachuca and using Cruz Azul and stuff like that. But again, I still, I still don't see the team with a set philosophy of how the team is supposed to be playing. So like I said, I thought the game was sloppy. Hopefully, normally, the following game with Bolivia, normally to me that would be like Molero, but in actuality, that game could be a good test because Bolivia still has something to play for. They have the confederational playoff.
Really?
Yeah. So they're playing in Mexico. If I'm not mistaken, I think they're playing either in Monterrey or Guadalajara in about a month and a half from now. So that game, I mean, Bolivia's got something to play for, and that sort of intensity and stuff like that. Now, even though you're right that Bolivia is not the type of team that is going to resemble like a South Africa or that the European team
or Korea.
The the intensity and the hostile crowd that could serve the team well because you're going to see which players are going to basically I guess adapt to that sort of hostility and adversity because again I do see that game again under normal circumstances I wouldn't really care about playing Bolivia, but a team like Bolivia that's hungry and is up against the wall and wants to make it to the World Cup, they're going to be playing for something.
Yeah.
So hopefully Aguirre does what he did, and gets the team working, well in the World Cup. So I'm still not convinced as to the style that Mexico's been playing, for the past, 4+ years and stuff like that. I think we need to come to terms that we're not as good in possession as we used to. And I think we just need to be more of an effective team, meaning pragmatic,
Mm-hmm.
giving the ball away, and I've used this before, this analogy of like rugby, that sometimes you basically concede possession, but with the intent of the opposition opening, their back lines and stuff like that. The last time that I remember, Mexico playing very well behind the ball, it was actually with El Chepo. Chepo, and granted, he screwed the pooch towards the end, right? But like I said, it's been a while since I've seen, Mexico play well behind the ball.
Yeah.
I think until we get better player and basically players. One of the things, and this has been problematic for a long, long time in Mexico, where as players move through the ranks from, the 17s to the 20s, 23s, and whatever, there isn't really a set style where, the players can transition from youth to senior team. And I see sometimes, and it really irritates me how the teams are not able to really. It seems like they get congested between when they're transitioning from one sector of the field to the other sector of the field. It seems like they're being congested and stuff like that, and they're not going to tiki taka their way out of that. I just think that that comment. I forget which player said it about Edson. One of his was critiques of Edson was that
Schneider.
Well, yeah, that's right. We're and to a certain degree, he's right that Edson, would sometimes take the easy path and just pass back,
Yep.
as opposed to basically trying to do that. And I think that that's not just an Edson thing. I think that that's just it seems like that's plagued the national team for a good while. And I don't know. It's just, for me, it's very frustrating because it's been a couple of years like that. I think I'm a part of me is hopeful that, because the team is fairly young and you do have a lot of young talent.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hopeful that in their youth, they're stupid enough to realize who they have in front of them, and they won't care, and they'll take it to them. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That sometimes you have to be stupid enough to realize, I don't give a shit that I got, Brazil in front of me, or that I got, Italy in front of me, or right now not Italy, but what I'm saying is that's what I'm kind of hopeful that, their youth and excitement will be an advantage to them, because right now, like I said, it's hard for me to see really, a lot of good things about the national team, just in general.
No, yeah, it's been a rough patch for quite some time, and there's just no light at the end of the tunnel, from what we're seeing on the pitch. And today, the little moments that Hormiga had on the pitch, like he was trying to turn chicken shit into chicken salad, and even with the little bit that they gave him, he almost scored. And I'm like, dude, that just confirms like this dude should be starting. Maybe he gets the starting position on Sunday against Bolivia. I think against Bolivia, we're probably going to see a lot of rotations. But yeah, I was surprised to see a lot of players left out today. Diego Lainez, you got to acknowledge the form he's in. I think he's probably in better form than Piojo right now. Fimbres scoring golazos with Monterrey. Maybe they're going to get the start on Sunday. But yeah.
Do you think Lainez makes the team?
I don't know. If I'm being critical of like this roster that they brought for this microciclo, like I think we might have at most like 5 players that are gonna join the team in the summertime. I think Malagon and Rangel are a lock on the defense side. Maybe Israel Reyes. I know Gallardo for sure will go. Everybody else is like kind of like they're auditioning right now, you know, and that's another thing that pisses me off. It's like, bro, there's a lot of these players like Richie, Ledesma, Brian, Gutierrez, you know, players that got to start today. I'm like, bro, this is like your one shot of maybe convincing Aguirre to take you. You got to ball out. You got to go out there and fight for every ball and try not to, you know, lose the ball, lose possession. You know, Mexico had about 70 something possession most of the match, but they didn't do anything with it. It was more of just like a coping mechanism. It's like we're comfortable on the ball, but, you know, maybe South Africa will allow us to play that way. And Korea is going to press the fuck out of us, which is going to make us very uncomfortable, and we're going to be more susceptible to mistakes. And then
I'll say this about Korea and Japan. Korea and Japan are basically what Mexico was 20 years ago, and I'm not saying that you know they're behind Mexico 20 years. What I'm trying to say is that they started to believe in themselves that they can play against the big boys, and they can play without you know playing their style without hey, this is what we're going to do and stuff like that. So they're very good. They're very good in that respect. Both South Korea and Japan.
Yep.
And it seems like they have picked up their mojo where Mexico has lost their mojo. And that's why I think for me that the game that's going to give Mexico probably the biggest problem in the World Cup. I don't even think it's going to be the European team. I think it's going to be Korea. I think so.
Absolutely. That is an absolute nightmare for us, depending on how things go in our opening match, right? If we don't get a favorable result against South Africa, that game against Korea, it's kind of like Argentina, they lost to Saudi Arabia. Yeah. And then that game against Mexico, they were like shitting bricks because they knew they could potentially be eliminated. So I think like Mexico needs to get ahead of this and really take these like friendlies seriously. And, against South Africa, like, yeah, we got to take it to them. Like there's even when we played them, you were there in 2010, like we looked very uncomfortable against South Africa. We didn't really know them. We didn't really have any head to head against them. And they made it very, very difficult for us. And I think it's just like the physicality and the fast twitch muscles that Juan Carlos Osorio keeps talking about. Like, physically they're going to, they're going to be more dominant than us. And, I think where Mexico can succeed is like the tactical and like, we're better on the ball, better with possession. But right now it's like we're not really generating any offense. So, that first game could be a draw. And the game against Korea is just like that much more important to get a victory because you don't want to roll the dice on the last game, So it's going to be interesting these next couple of months and seeing which players are in form and which ones are out. You mentioned Edson Alvarez. Edson Alvarez doesn't really have a team right now. I know he's in Turkey. It didn't really work out for him. And now he's trying to get back to his team in the EPL, but I don't think they want him either. So like, Edson Alvarez, who, he's been kind of like the leader of this team, the captain of this team. Like he hasn't been in the best form. And, Santiago Jimenez, who's supposed to be our number 2, he's injured. He's not even playing right now. He won't be eligible to play until like late March, early April. And that's just way too close for, the World Cup.
A couple months back, I said that basically that, Martin is basically the number 3, because you're going to have the two Santis. Right now, I think Jimenez is still the number 1. In terms of the number 2 and the number 3, I don't even know if it's Santi or I don't even know if it's Martin anymore. That worries me.
Yeah, I think
Martin has been injured for a good while now, and Santi just doesn't seem like he's in good form. So that in itself has me worried. I mean, at that point, if you don't have that second striker, that's in good form, it's almost like you're forced to basically. It's like you're forced to play counterattack and basically try to beat the team, because if we're trying to play possession oriented, and trying to feed, going from the back line to the mid and trying to feed the forwards or the false 9, whatever. It's like, what are you really doing? Nothing.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. We have possession, we're building up the play, but the execution in the final third is horrendous, right? We get kind of like deer in headlights. We don't know what to do with the ball once it's in that final third because they're all bunkering and we can't find a way in. And then we end up like crossing the ball and we lose possession. It's just like, it's not working. And it's something that we've been trying to do for like, it feels like it's the last 8 years we've been doing the same, fucking thing. And it's so frustrating to watch. You talk about like the striker crisis right now. I think as of right now, Raul Jimenez is our starting striker. He's doing a really good job over there in England for Fulham. Number 2 is up in the air, but you cannot ignore the form that Quinones is in. I know he plays in Saudi Arabia, but I mean, he's out there putting numbers, competing with like Cristiano Ronaldo and stuff. And I don't know if Aguirre has ever tried to utilize him as a striker. He kind of plays him out of position. I don't know if he gels with Aguirre, but it's very clear that Aguirre has more trust and confidence in Germán Bertrame, which I don't know why, man. It's like the whole Vasco Guille Franco situation in 2010. It's like, dude, Hormiga should be right now that we're in a striker crisis. He should be at least like our number 3 or even right behind Raul Jimenez, because he's in great form. He's scoring every single game, and it's like, you cannot ignore this. You got to put him in. He's hot.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but I know that, for example, the past couple episodes and stuff like that, I've been calling for Sebastian, Cordova, and even Magui, Fidalgo. But I mean, the more I think about it, as much as I would love, I think Lainez makes the team. I think he's in a good place where, if he just remains healthy and improves on what he did last year, I think he makes it. Now, part of me is, wishful that, Turco gets, Seba back on track, right? And I'm thinking that even if Seba's back on track, and even like, let's say, Fidalgo, gets back in a good rhythm and stuff like that, and let's say he does get called up to the national team, my fear is that because we haven't been playing a good, we're not really good in possession. At least I don't think so anymore. It's like, and for me, one of the things that I really admired when Seba was on fire was, for me, he was almost like a Guau type of player, where he could control the tempo of the team, and he could find, he was that natural 10. And I don't think that we have that team around him. So that's why part of me is like, God, I just love his brilliance when he's on. Same thing with, Fidalgo. But if you don't have that cast of players around, it's like, what are you doing? And that's why I've just kind of been saying, like, who are really good at who's really good on the wings, and who's really good at crossing, getting crosses into the box.
Yeah. Yeah, I think at this point we will have to do like a false 9 situation, kind of like Giroud and France in 2018. Like, he wasn't really like their 9. He was kind of just doing all the dirty work. I could see Raul Jimenez having his back to the goal and really just trying to set things up on the wings, because we have great wingers. They're aggressive and stuff. So we'll see how it works, and then where Gil Mora fits into all this too.
You're right. If we play fast on the breaks and stuff like that, I think we could be deadly, because that's one of the few good things that I see about the team when they decide to do it. Yeah. When they decide to do it, where they're basically, they're at an advantage, making the runs, doing the overlapping runs and stuff like that. When they go and they go straight for the, they crash the box and stuff like that, and they don't stop, and they don't wait for the other team to basically, get in position. I think that's when they've been the most dangerous, and I think that's been the common theme, and that's why it's like, well, if you're good at that, work on that. It's really, really frustrating where these guys are trying to, tiki-taka their way into the goal. It's like, dude, take some more long range shots. Try to, make sure that the defenders are off balance. And like I said, it's just sometimes it's frustrating.
Yeah, for sure. I was looking at that Bolivia match. I thought they were going to take us to the top. Like they have one of the tallest stadiums, not tallest, but like a stadium that's in the highest altitude in the world. I know even like they take Argentina there and really struggle, over 13,000 feet. But it looks like we're going to be playing in Santa Cruz, which is not too high. But like you're right, they are still fighting for a spot in the World Cup. They're going to match up against Suriname. They're going to play their matches in Guadalajara and Monterrey. And then if they win that, they will face, I think, Iran in the final. So Bolivia still has a lot to play for, and this will be a good test for Mexico. Rifalo, what you got for us, man?
So, just some players that I thought did well in spite of this lackluster performance. Brian Gonzalez and Ledesma were some of the only creative engines for us, and they're both physical. They're both relatively fast. Ledesma is more silky and creative than he is fast, but Cotorro is an absolute unit. But another person whose stock I went up was Gallardo. As soon as he came on, things started revving for us, and so it's good to have him on a good form. Hopefully that continues because I think he's over 30. I think he's 31. So he's not a spring chicken, but he's still wicked quick. I like him. I think more so than anything, we have fast wing backs right now, more so than wingers. But speaking of fast players, Julian Quiñones, he scored a doblete the other day for his Arabian side, and I think he has 15 goals in the league now. So he's on fire, and he's like a second striker. Today we played with a second striker in Brian or Piojo, tucking in and being like that central player behind the striker in what's it called? Play Quiñones in his favorite role, which is the satellite off the big number 9, which is Raúl or Hormigol or Sepúlveda. Right now, those are the 3 guys. Martin has been out for a significant amount of time. I think I don't even know if he can win his spot back at Club America.
I'd have to agree with you now because like a couple months back, I said this guy's a shoe-in. He's at least the second or third guy, right? I don't even know if he makes not just Club America. I don't even know if he makes the national team.
I don't think he's going to the World Cup, bro.
He's going to have to put up. Now, here's the thing with Martin. He's very much like Jimenez, Raúl, in the sense that he can play back and create his own chances, right? So even if he doesn't rack up a lot of goals, even if he racks up the assist and he helps the other players around him, that to me was the ideal Henry Martin. That's what that's why many Americanistas fell in love with the guy, because the guy was just an engine, right?
Desgastador.
I mean that's why you like him, and if he wins the liderato of goleo, perfect. That's just icing on the cake. I mean, he would have to get that sort of roll back in order to get back to the national team, and I don't know if he does it. Like I said, I don't know. It's going to be really hard for him to get his rhythm back with Club America.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't get that, then I don't think he makes it to the World Cup.
So he's just like injured right now. He's not even playing.
Yeah, and honestly, America's been a hospital for a good while.
Yeah,
and one of the things that kind of bothers me is that, like, I don't know if you guys heard, or I think you guys mentioned it once a couple weeks back. Like Toluca fired their physical trainers and their kinesiologists. I don't know if you guys were aware of that, like of that little scandal.
Do you guys happen to train near a power plant?
What's that?
I said, do you guys happen to are your training facilities near a power plant? Because the Niners have a lot of injuries and they're saying that it's due to a nearby power plant.
I don't know. But like I said, I'm starting to question, what the hell is going on? Like, do they need to get new trainers? Do they need to, get rid of the doctors and stuff like that? Because that's not normal for that amount of time. And it's not like we're playing Copa Libertadores, Copa Sudamericana, the Champions League Cup and stuff like that. I get it. These players play a lot of games more so than in the past. But that to me is a little sus. I think if I were to, 4 months back or 3 months back, I could have probably made you a list of which players were going to, like definitely shoe-ins
Mm-hmm.
to go to the World Cup. I couldn't give you that list with, with 70%, 60% certainty. I couldn't do that right now.
Yeah. I don't know if it's a bad thing or a good thing because no one's a lock in right now, which breeds competition and it's going to push people to really try to ball out. At least that's what I would hope for. I don't think everybody's complacent just yet.
So here's the thing. I didn't agree with him then, but as you get older and a little wiser, you kind of you kind of agree with him. Like for example, when La Volpe basically stopped the competition in terms of the goalkeeping position, when he says no, Osvaldo's my guy. I back then I thought, well, what a fucking asshole. I said, I mean, what is that doing to Ochoa or Conejo Pe, or whoever, because they, or Corona and stuff like that. So, and as I've heard and watched more interviews with La Volpe in terms of like how he chose that team and stuff like that, it was like, damn, I understand his position or why he did this or why, he said this, and for me, it's like the fact that there comes a point where your team should be basically almost like 90-95% ready. And then just basically, you're just the last couple picks is just like in case. And I understand why, now why La Volpe did what he did. And I'm starting to worry, that about Aguirre, because like I said, I can't make the list with 60-70% certainty. And that to me, I don't think that's a good thing. I think that's a bad thing.
He's playing 4D chess. He doesn't know what he's doing. Therefore, the teams that are spying on us, they don't know what we're gonna be doing. We're not gonna know until like an hour before kickoff what his lineup is gonna be for the starting world. Like we don't know because he doesn't know.
Yeah, it's chaotic. It's chaotic strategy. Like if they don't, we don't know what we're gonna do. They won't know.
It's a bold move, Cotton. Let's see if it plays out. The other thing, oh man, I lost my train of thought, but yeah, dude, I think Aguirre, famously had a roster of how many players did he had a camp, right? He had like 24 players, and then at the very end he decided to cut Jonathan Dos Santos, right? And I hope we don't get into that kind of scenario this time around because I know he's going to be pulling players aggressively early and they're going to be in some training camp for quite some time. Hormiga, like, oh, I don't know. And then at the very end, he gets cut. And yeah, we're just like all going to be furious. I think he needs to lock in his players like early because, yeah, the more you leave this to the last minute, the worse it's going to be for everybody involved.
Yeah, I agree. But I don't think that's the way he operates. And I think he's going to continue the carousel of different players until he finds exactly what he's looking for up and like, the day before. And the thing is we finally have a good crop of young players like hitting the ground running in the league, as well as, abroad, whether that be Obed Vargas in the MLS or, the few players that we have in Europe that are finding form like Raul. So like things are looking up. I guess I also want to touch on the defense today. We didn't allow a goal. Rangel was strong. There wasn't a plethora of shots by the Panamanians, but as I posted in this chat, Victor Guzman of Monterrey, he didn't lose a single duel tonight.
Wow.
And he's not a day in day out starter for Rayados de Monterrey, but he's a consentido of Vasco in the sense that Vasco likes the attributes that he brings to the table. He's fast, he's strong, he's aggressive, he's pretty tall, good specimen physically. And he's not a day in, day out setter for Monterrey, but he started today and he impressed. And the stats back that up. Aguila was a little more quiet. He had a good moment, I think, off a corner kick where he floated the ball over the bar. He's kind of an unknown. He plays for a relatively small team in San Luis. Atletico San Luis, and so not a lot of people have like kept an eye out on him, but he's good. The team that he plays for has been kind of dog shit for about a year now, so that doesn't really help his trajectory or like help him shine. But I do think he's a talented player. But I'm more interested in Everardo del Villar
Mm-hmm.
of Toluca. He didn't play today, but during the U20 World Cup, he played every match. He's a day in day out starter for the best team in Mexico, which is the doblete champion Toluca.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm interested to see him play. I hope he's given a chance against Bolivia. You stated that they're not going to host Mexico in their high altitude stadium. They're going to do one, I think, at only 3,000 feet above sea level. So I think Mexico rolls Bolivia. I think we roll
Really?
them.
Oh
I
shit.
do. I do. If we're playing lowland, then we're gonna beat them because Bolivia is just not that good away from their fortress in the sky. But the tickets sold out relatively quickly. I'm reading,
Yeah.
and it's being billed as the reinauguration of the stadium, which
Oh.
was like just went over a makeover. So yeah, let's see, what is it
It'll
called?
be our pleasure to give them their first
Santa Cruz.
L in their in that new stadium.
Yeah, but that's all I had, man. Oh, wait, it's called Estadio Ramon Tahuichi.
Mm-hmm.
One hell of a name. But that's all I had. I wasn't impressed, but
Yeah.
there's some good in this game, even though it is a Molero. And I'm disappointed Mora wasn't in, but
Yeah. He has
you know,
a
uh
um.
niggling injury.
Yeah. Yeah. He actually didn't even make the trip. I think they realized that he had a molestia and they sent him back to Tijuana. But Aguirre spoke very highly of him, and I think he's a lock in for the national team for the World Cup. Far as everybody else, I think Rangel, Malagon for sure. Um, I don't know, man. After that, it's kind of like up in the air. I know Piojo's kind of like always been called up. Charlie Rodriguez has always been called up. You have your usual suspects, Gallardo, right? Even like Eric Lira, right? He's been consistently called up under Aguirre. And then on the bench, unfortunately Jorge Sanchez gets called up quite a bit. Linus. I think Sepulveda is kind of just like a backup in case Santi struggles to get back in form or whatever. But I really don't see Sepulveda making the World Cup roster.
Yeah, my biggest question mark is who's going to be our creative attacker.
Gil
A few
Mora.
months ago, Gil Mora is good, but he's still young. Like a few months ago, Vega, was tearing shit up
Oh yeah.
with a vengeance, right, for Toluca, and he's kind of had the same issue that he's always had throughout his
Mm-hmm.
career, especially at Chivas,
Yeah.
which is like an injury that bites him after a good run of form. And so he missed out on the final, or he was a late sub in the
Yeah.
final and was basically on crutches still.
Yeah.
You could tell he couldn't run. So I'm curious to see if he can get back to that form that he had at the end of what was the uh, what was the previous Toluca coach's name? He was a Portuguese guy, uh, Paiva, under
Paiva, yeah.
Paiva, and then Turco Mohamed, bar 6 months ago, like when he started falling off. So I'm curious to see if he can come in. If not, someone else is going to snatch up his spot. Chucky can also play on the left.
Ugh.
So it might happen. I think he's got a good relationship with Vasco, and
Yeah,
so I
but
think
the situation in San Diego, man. What is he gonna do?
I don't know, man. I don't know. Like he could go out on loan, and San Diego could pay half his wages, and then he'll come back after the World Cup, and then they can sort it out then. If not, then yeah, he'll be playing on the side. Something's got to give. San Diego gave him too much power. He has like so many like perks at San Diego. He's overpaid.
Yeah.
He has the ability to train apart. I think he has some locker room say, like some decision making say on certain signings. They really gave him everything, and they're regretting it now. and that's their own fault. If Chucky stays because of the money's too good, like who can blame him? He's 30 years old. This is the last big one, I think. This is the last
Yeah.
big contract, and he would be a fool to forego that for what is it, 9 games, 8 games at the World Cup. It just doesn't make sense. He's gotta make the most amount of time. Um, I mean, the most amount of money in a little amount of time. I meant, and I wouldn't blame him, but it might bite him in the butt as far as like the best version of himself that comes World Cup time.
Look, Chuki's trying to have his cake and eat it too. He's trying to, convince Aguirre, hey man, we're still buddies, right? Like you'll still take me to the World Cup even if I, sit this out in San Diego and get paid. I think you can't have your cake and eat it too. It's like there's, especially for his position, I think there's a lot of competition there. And, you can't just rely on what you did in the past. You got to be informed, and I don't know, man. I think Chucky, I don't know what's going on. I don't know, but it seems like a reoccurring theme that like he has locker room problems and, San Diego tried to really make him the franchise player and it, kind of like backfired on them. And now they're trying to get him out of this contract and he wants to get paid. And you see this in sports all the time, and players just end up writing out their contract because they're like, fuck it. You can't, it's my contract. You got to pay me out. You got to pay me these millions that you said you would get a loan somewhere. But the January transfer window is closing pretty soon. So he needs to get that shit figured out. If he plans on even trying to sneak onto this World Cup roster.
And one other thing, on the left today, we had, the O Block Chirac grown player, Brian Gutierrez.
Yeah.
And and he might be the guy on the left, and he drifts inside, and he's more of a midfielder than he is an out winger. But he's fast, and for Chicago, he played on the left wing a lot, or the right, and so he can definitely do that. I think he's a little bit wasted there. I think he's better centrally, and but I think what's a testament to his quality is that he was only just recently baptized into Mexican football.
Yeah.
He's only got a few handful of games under his belt in Liga MX for Chivas.
3.
And he's already got that call up.
He's already making an impact. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's no tiene techo. He has no roof. The sky's the limit with this guy, and I'm very hopeful, especially since he survived O Block, Chirac. So it ain't easy.
Yeah, I like Brian Gutierrez, and I think he's like a babyface assassin, and he also scored quite a few goals for Chicago last season. So he's someone that can offer you something that we currently don't have on the national team. And I don't know if he sneaks into this, roster for the World Cup, but if he continues the form he's in at Chivas, and I don't know, man, he could definitely slide into that final roster. But yeah, that's really all I had. Today was just kind of just the aftermath of the Panama match. I know we haven't really talked about Liga MX, but we'll probably do that in a future session. We just got to acknowledge the great form that Chivas are in. Super leaders, 3 out of 3, wins. And we'll see how long this train goes because, like typical, when Chivas are in great form, we lose players to the national team. And, come to year time, we're going to be looking pretty thin. I'm just happy that nobody got injured today. Being out in Panama and knowing how they fucking play. And I know Richie got into a few scruffs. I'm like just worried for my players. Like, don't hurt them. I'm actually glad Himura didn't even go, man, because like we need to protect him at all costs. Anything you'd like to add or follow before we sign off?
I just want to, give my flowers to Milito. I love what he's doing over there at Chivas. Some of the other greats are not doing so well. Like, Club America is currently without a goal. They have yet to score a goal this tournament. I know we'll get into that more later. But I'm very excited and proud that my team, Chivas, is the backbone of La Selección. That's an honor, and it might.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and they might bite us in the butt as far as like the Chivas season goes. We'll have to wait till the next one after the World Cup for us to really hit our stride and have no distractions. But El Tri de Rebaño, and what a great time to be a Chivas fan, and what a great time to be alive, and hopefully they can do something at the World Cup, and we'll see. It looks like there's a game in the works with Brazil for like May 30th, so right before the World Cup.
Oof.
That'll be a great test for us. Hopefully that happens. You've already mentioned Belgium and Iceland.
Hmm.
Iceland, they got those tall boys, man. Those
Yeah.
Vikings, Thorfinn, and God knows who else. So it'll be a good test for us, and
Yeah.
I'm hopeful for that. But yeah, super excited, and arriba las Chivas, and viva Mexico.
Let's go, Rafael. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, really, looking at Chivas, I'm really looking forward to how this season pans out. And, I have a feeling it's going to be shades of like 2006 when, Chivas ended up being the backbone of the national team and we were kind of scrambling to fill those spots. And our, Tapatio team, our reserves stepped it up. That was like the revelation of El Chato Guzman and, Chaton Enriquez, sorry. Chaton Enriquez. Yeah, he kind of came out of that. Sergio Avila. There was like a lot of players that were just waiting for an opportunity to shine while all of our seleccionados were in Germany. And I think with Chivas, like there's a lot of players that obviously are a little too green for the national team, but can absolutely kind of be a revelation later on in the season as we lose our seleccionados. I'm looking at El Negro Sandoval Jr. I'm looking at Yael Padilla, Camberos. Like those guys are not going to make obviously the World Cup roster. But with all these veterans leaving, that definitely opens up the opportunity for these kids to get showcased and maybe carry us to a final. We'll see. But we'll be here to cover everything. I'll try to get something going on Sunday. If not, we'll catch you guys on a regular scheduled podcast on Tuesday night. Thank you so much for supporting us and listening tonight, and we will catch you